Hi everybody, I'm Robin Warner and I'm driving a 2022 Acura RDX, and I'm driving this 2022 Acura RDX in Southern California because Acura invited me to Southern California to give this new car a try. Now, this is a mid-cycle update of the RDX, which came out as a new generation in 2019. This is a relatively minor mid-cycle update, but there are a couple of important improvements. So why don't I start by giving you a quick walk around of the car and go over some of those things right now. You are looking at the mid-cycle updated 2022 Acura RDX. Now this particular RDX is the A-Spec RDX with the advanced package, so kind of top of the line. Not exactly top of the line, but I'll get to that in a moment. So for 2022, Acura has done some updates to both the front and the rear end of the car. In front, you'll see larger air scoops here in the side, right here, and a bigger diamond pentagon grille with a not bigger but still incredibly big Acura emblem right there. There's also, if the car has the option, some newly designed LED fog lights down here. The wheels remain either 19 or 20 inches, but the A-Spec models, and that's A-Spec and A-Spec Advanced, do get different design wheels, and these are the new designed 20-inch wheels. And you still have plenty of evidence that it is in fact an A-Spec if you look throughout the car. Moving to the back, most examples will get new rectangular exhaust tips, but not the A-Spec. The A-Spec sticks with these dual exhaust tips that look like this, and that looks just fine. Aside from those changes, you're basically looking at the same RDX. Of course, the platform itself is the same, and it's the same size with the same wheelbase and dimensions and the same, handsome general shape. But let's take a look inside. Plenty of, your usual features here. Obviously, power windows, power locks, side view mirrors. You do get driver memory right here and decent amount of adjustments for the seats right here. You also get this nice double level center console, and you can see now the lower level does have smartphone wireless charging right here, which is nice. At first glance of the interior, it pretty much looks the same. You still get the 10.2-inch center console screen here. You still get this dynamic mode button up top and this push button Prindle system, and the touchpad that is always going to be the top corner of the touchpad is always the top corner of the screen. But there are some important changes. Apple CarPlay and Android Auto are now wireless and standard on the car across the board. And on some of the cars, you can't tell right now in the middle of the day, you'll get this LED ambient lighting. And on some of the trims, you'll get some new materials like this aluminum down here, this synthetic suede right here, and these different leathers right over here. Also on the advanced A-Spec, you get heated seats, cooled seats, and a heated steering wheel right over here. Also, this big old piece of glass, which is right up here, that's standard across the board. Anyway, let's go for a drive. Back again. Yeah, so because I'm in Southern California and I have a limited amount of time in this car, this is not going to be as thorough and detailed of a review as usual as I'd like to do. Also, I'm not as familiar with these roads as I am of Southeast Michigan. Also, it's the Los Angeles area, so there's lots of traffic, so there's lots of stopping. But I'm going to do the best I can with the time and space that I have, so I hope you don't mind. Okay, let's start with the things that are carrying over, and that's most of it. And so it's the same chassis, same dimensions, same wheelbase, all those types of things, and also the same turbocharged 2-liter 4-cylinder engine. That is not a bad thing. You do get 272 horsepower, 280 pound-feet of torque. You also get a 10-speed automatic transmission, and also optionally available all-wheel drive, the super handling all-wheel drive, which is a torque vectoring all-wheel drive system. All that remains for 2022. But there are a couple of important updates that Acura made to the 2022 RDX that we should definitely talk about while driving it. First of all, Acura added more sound deadening material into the car and added something called acoustic glass, which is basically thicker glass. So this windshield here is now a thicker windshield than it had been before. Sound deadening material and the thicker windshield quiet the cabin of this car while you're on the road. Also, if you get the technology package car, they also add acoustic glass to the front doors, so that's even quieter, especially in the front row. And if you get the advanced package, this top line A-Spec advanced package, it adds front and rear door acoustic glass in addition to the windshield and the extra sound deadening material. Do all those things combined, and Acura claims that the 2022 RDX is 30% quieter than the 2021 RDX. Pretty impressive. So far, I've only been driving on city roads, but on these city roads, this does feel like a more isolated, quieter cabin. Having not driven an old one and a new one back to back, I can't give a direct comparison, but I can say that this car is nice and isolated in the cabin. It's quiet in here, and there's a lot of noise around me and outside of me, so it is a nice, calming, comfortable place to be. And to just emphasize the point a little further, I am now on the interstate here in California, and road noise isolation and cabin noise generally is remaining nice and quiet. The added sound deadening and the acoustic glass are definitely making a difference. There is a lot of traffic around me, as you can clearly see, and it's really still pretty reasonably quiet in here. What I'm hearing as much as anything is the HVAC system. Noticeable improvement, welcome improvement. The other change that Acura made was to make a bigger difference between its drive modes. Acura has 4 drive modes in the RDX: Snow, Comfort, Normal, and Sport. And especially if you're in this new trimmed RDX, the A-Spec with advanced package trim, then you definitely notice it because it has a new calibration for its adaptive shocks. And that means that you have more comfort, like a softer tune when you're in comfort mode, and more stiffness when you're in sport mode. So the sport mode feels sportier and the comfort mode feels more comfortable. I am currently in comfort mode here on the interstate, and it is plenty comfortable. That I don't remember in driving the 2019 RDX being an issue. It felt plenty comfortable in that car as well. But when I get a chance to put it in sport mode and feel that out, we'll see if that feels any different. Okay, after driving around in sport mode a bit, it's definitely different. You can feel a big difference in the shocks. They're much stiffer, but you can also feel a big difference in the throttle map and the throttle tip-in and the gearing. Now, the 10-speed automatic does a really good job to keep you in lower gears, higher engine revs, to have a nice snappy feel. But the throttle tip-in, man, it is quite aggressive, and for me, over the top. Considering that this is an SUV, I think my preferred mode is actually normal, not sport. But if you do find yourself on a nice set of twisty roads, sport might be the right amount of body control you really want, and then you can just be nice and sensitive with the throttle and still manage it just fine. So when you're on twisty roads, the sport mode really does come into its own on this RDX. Yes, this is an SUV, but it is on the smaller side of SUVs, and that gives it a bit of agility, more than you'd expect, even though this is taller than usual, right? And the even stiffer sport mode really does help rein in body control. So you get really minimal body roll going through the corners, and the car actually does transition left to right pretty darn quickly. Now, what that does as much as anything is kind of remind you, hey, you're not on the grippiest tires of all. Still, you get a nice fast steering rack. You get good precision from it as well. The front end is reasonably responsive, and it's a good, enjoyable SUV to be in. So yeah, it's an SUV, but it's definitely higher than average fun in an SUV. Overall, Acura definitely made some evolutionary changes as opposed to revolutionary changes with this mid-cycle update of the RDX. And that's a good thing, because the 2019 model was the revolutionary change for the RDX, and almost, you could argue, for the Acura brand as a whole. It really did mark the beginning of a new era, with more importance on the sport side of things, less on the luxury. And it is true that you can enjoy anything you drive if it's tuned the right way to make it enjoyable to drive. So really appreciate all the work that Acura did to continually improve the RDX. And speaking of evolutionary improvements, Acura did also add some new safety tech to this car. I'll list that on the video now so you can see what I'm talking about. Nothing major here, but you know, a couple more things to add to the Acura Watch system. I do personally like the traffic sign recognition. That does make it helpful to get a better sense of what speed limits are and turns, those things coming up. I think that's a helpful one. Before we get too far, we should probably mention price. For a 2022 Acura RDX, the base price for a front-wheel drive model is $40,345, and this car I'm driving right now, which is an all-wheel drive RDX A-Spec with the advanced package, is $52,345. But this is actually not the top of the line RDX, because Acura is building a limited run of the PMC edition. They're building 200 versions of the PMC, and the PMC edition is going to get its own special paint job and a couple of other little bits. That SUV is $55,295. So this definitely was an abbreviated drive. I didn't get as much time to really dig into the details like I like, but I can definitely tell you it's whet my appetite to learn more about this RDX and to get a more detailed drive to you guys soon. Until then, I'm Robin Warner. Thank you so much for watching. And if you are still watching, I'd really appreciate it if you like this video and subscribe to my channel. Those things really do help me out a lot. Okay, goodbye. 2-liter turbo.